Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Big at the Back North versus South podcast. So this is the collaboration that we have been promising for over a month. The reason we haven't done it yet is thanks to my normal co-host, Matt Higgins. Matt, how are you?
It was a bit rude, no need for that early on, but I'm not too bad, thanks. It's been a long time coming, and yes, it was my fault that I forgot I was going around my in-laws for dinner on the night we were meant to be podcasting just after the season finished, but all good things come to those who wait. So I'm all right. How are you, Tom?
I am wonderful. And obviously, we're joined here today by the North versus South guys, Heath and State. So Heath, just moved house, just back from your wedding. How's your summer going so far?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm fucking knackered. No, it's good. It's good. I mean, so much has happened. I'm in that kind of place where after you've been married, you know that feeling of like, thank God that's finished. As much as I love my wife and I'm glad that we're married, I'm just so glad that we can kind of start to think about other things, namely this podcast. And I feel like this wouldn't be the same without my main man State with us here. State with the Iniesta look. How's it going, buddy?
It's going well. This is my my new look for the upcoming season. It'll coincide with my team name as well, so that'll be something to look forward to. But yeah, now things are good, and obviously now. I'm not going to have a go at you, Matt, for delaying it, because it was one day. I then went on holiday for 2 weeks, which didn't help. Heath then had a wedding after that, so it's, to be fair, Tom, you're the only person who's really tried sticking true to the timescale. So fair play to Tom. The rest of us, life just happened for us. That's all. Just a bit of life. But yeah, it's great to collaborate with you guys, and obviously. Getting to speak to Heath again is always a pleasure of mine, especially while I'm still title of the champion in our podcast. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to just rub in his face a bit more again tonight, I think.
We are 1 minute in, and not only has he said that I have no life, but he's also brought up that he's a champion once. We'll keep a running tally and see how many times that comes up over the podcast.
Yeah, I can definitely offend people. I'm quite confident.
So how are you feeling about being completely outnumbered here, though, State? Like, it's 3-on-1 now. Like, you prepared for this?
Yeah, guys, God, I could take on 6 of you, to be fair, if I wanted to. It's not an issue. The northern man can handle these things. I mean, I don't know. I've been more thinking of you to be prepared for me, to be fair. I've got several beers in front of me. I'm ready to go. My lad's asleep. I can go all night now. It's all good.
Well, I've got a 10-week-old puppy that won't settle down until I eventually go to bed. So let's try and not make it an all-night thing, but we'll definitely have a good stint here. Yeah. So guys, great to finally be doing this podcast. We are looking over a few themes for this, particularly looking at the season as a whole from a footballing perspective and from an FPL perspective as well. So let's start with how we did. And Matt, you have won out of the two of us, and you're the Big at the Back champions. So why don't we start with you?
Well, I mean, I didn't want to be the first one to mention it, but yes, thank you. It's great to take that title, and it's not coming back to you anytime soon. But yeah, overall good season. I mean, so close to finishing the top 30k in FPL, just outside 31k in the end, which was quite disappointing when I was up at sort of 21k after game week 36. So, but I'd have taken that at the start of the season. Obviously, finishing above you is the highlight, though. That is by far and away the most important thing when it comes to FPL. Personally, West Ham had a great season as well. So all in all, it's actually been quite an enjoyable season for once. Normally, I just get through football with FPL because following West Ham is so painful. But it's been nice to have positive things on both sides of the football coin this season.
It'll screw you over next year. Don't worry about it. The dream's over. You do know that now, don't you? Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. I'm just enjoying it while it lasts. Like, I'm fully expecting to end next season in a relegation scrap, Like we will crash out of the Europa Conference League in the group stages. There'll be some sort of turmoil in the club. Everyone will want to leave. Declan Rice will hand in a transfer request in January. The wheels will come off. But anyway, as I'll pass from one champion to another. State, well, how did you find the season?
Well, this season was highly enjoyable. I felt I've done an all right season. I mean, considering obviously, for any of those who don't know, have not listened to mine and Heath's podcast. I mean, for starters, why have you not done that? But the second point, I've only been able to pick players from the 10 most northern sides. So this season I had Everton, Leeds, Newcastle, Burnley, Man United, Leicester, Liverpool, Man City, and Norwich to pick from, and Wolves, as well. So I could only pick from those 10 teams. And I know what everyone's thinking, how on earth have I managed to beat Heath when I've had to pick from Man United, Burnley, Newcastle, and Everton, Leeds, and all the other crap, and also have to contend with pet roulette, with Liverpool and City. I agree, a genius. That's what I am. So, but so I ended up with an overall points tally of 2,279. So we're not going to be anywhere near your guys' tallies here, Matt and Tom. We'll be nowhere near that. But I'm happy with 756,851st place out of over 9 million players. We're a very restricted team I can pick from. I'm very happy with that. And like you said, most importantly, the league, the head-to-head title came to the North. It's going to stay with the North for a while. It was on points difference, so it was a tight one. But I think we all know that the man who won deserved to win, and that's just how it goes, to be fair. So yeah, good season for me. I'm happy with it. Heath was devastated on the final day. He was messaging me. There was tears in his eyes, everything. But it was a great season from mine and Heath's perspective, because we said we didn't really want one of us to run away with it, and at one point it looked like I might have done, and then Mo Salah stopped scoring points, which meant game weeks became tight again. So, but luckily Heath didn't give up on things. But yeah, I suppose I best lead on to the loser in my group, and we'll leave Tom till the end. And so Heath, as the second place, the first runner-up in our league, how does that feel?
It feels dejecting. I feel embarrassed. I know how good you are, FPL. So I feel like even with Manchester City and Liverpool, and Newcastle in great form, that realistically I should be doing better. No, I was quite happy. I had a little consolation by winning the League Cup. That was quite a moment for me. I bought myself a cup. I haven't got it on me right now. That would be sad. It's in the dishwasher. I was a bit gutted that I didn't remember it, but it is what it is. But no, I think that the season as a whole, to be fair, football won. You had Salah, you had Cancelo a couple of times, you had KDB, I had Son and Kane, and let's be honest, it was good. It was good fun. It was good that it went all the way to the end of the season anyway. If people did listen to the podcast, then they would have seen how nervous and upset you were leading into the second from last podcast. You did seem a little bit upset at that time. It's nice to see, to be honest, because you're such a modest guy.
That when I captained KDB when he scored 4 goals.
The week before that, when you were really nervous that you might not win after being in front the whole season. But anyway, we can keep going. You can keep flirting about around this. But yeah, overall, I was happy because I finished in the top 900k. Sounds a bit weird, but I can only pick 7 players, so it was an improvement from last season. So let's move on to Tom, because I don't want our podcast to dominate here. That's what it feels like you're doing right now.
Dominating you, Heath. That's all. For sure.
Yeah.
Walked into that one, I think. So first things first. With the North versus South guys, guys, you haven't listened to them before, the way they play is quite interesting, doing the 10 most northern and the 10 most southern teams, because it means they have to be quite innovative with the players that they pick. I know State, for example, had Timo Pukki for most of the season. And if you look at the stats, he actually was the 3rd best forward in the game. So I think it just gives them the freedom to pick players they wouldn't have to. And it became a season, listening to you guys, of 2 halves. First season, obviously, being the Mo Salah show, the second half being the Heung-min Son's show. So it was really interesting to see that play out over the season. My season was up and down. Overall, I've got to be happy. I set myself the target of top 100k. I did that. I got just over 85k in the world. I think my total points was 2,516. And at one point, I think on game week 34, I was down from 30k all the way back to about 169. So managed to squeak back in and squeak back up to the top at the end, despite some traumatic weeks. Thank you, Reece James and Luca Digne. But that aside, season-wise, from a footballing perspective, as a Liverpool fan, it was difficult knowing how close we got to not only the league, but the Champions League as well. I think if it wasn't for Timo Courtois heroics, then we would have won the Champions League. If it wasn't for Villa just completely bottling it against City, then we would have won the league. So we came within a whisper of winning both. But we still won 2 cups, came really close to winning the other 2 trophies. As a Liverpool fan, I can't look at that and say that's not a huge success. FPL-wise, though, I lost to Matt, so it's a failure. I'm hanging my head in shame, and I just want the season to be over. I want next season to be over as well, and I hate FPL, and we're going to come on to that a little bit later with our shit list.
I'm just going to say, it must be really hard getting to 3 cup finals and coming second in the league. Like, I don't know how you cope. Like,
it's the hope that kills you, though. It's the hope that kills you. When you think you can win the quadruple. Whereas if you're West Ham, you're amazed if you can win a cup. For a Liverpool side as good as this one, they want to be winning everything all the time. So I think it's that expectation level.
I mean, you've got to be thinking here, though, guys. You know, we've all, you know, there's only one person on this podcast right now whose team had an absolute mare of a season. So the rest, I think 3 of us have got to be really grateful. My boys, Rotherham, we got promoted, you know, again. So, you know, we keep doing that yo-yo thing, which is excellent. And I expect us to be relegated again next season. But I'm enjoying that moment. Obviously, West Ham, great season from them. You know, nearly made it to a European final, which was unlucky, which, let's be honest, they've not been close to doing that, since the 70s, is it now? So since Trevor Brooking days. And then, like you said, Tom, Liverpool, fantastic. You know, most times, being that close. I mean, I saw the Champions League final and, Courtois had a blinder. But let's think about how it feels to be Heathy. He's lost in FPL. And how did his beloved Watford do? How did they do, Heath?
I'm being patient, mate. I can't wait for next season. All right, I want to come to Rotherham, home and away. All right, I want to see your face. We get the 6 points out of you boys, and you go down, and we go back up again. And we'll come back to the big at the back, guys, and we can have this conversation again. It'll be fun.
Well, at least we're playing you on a Saturday this season instead of that shitty Tuesday night with no beer in the away end at Vicarage Road. All right, I'm not doing that again.
No, we'll have plenty of beer, mate. Don't you worry about it.
Vicarage Road, I've been there once, never again.
When did you go?
It was probably about 15 years ago now, and it was either a Tuesday or Wednesday night. It was just a bit of a dive.
It used to be. I mean, it's better now. It's not that much better, but it's still better now because they put a little bit more money into it. But back in those days, I think we probably only had 3 stands because of the asbestos. So they were the glory days when we were looking in the League One direction rather than Premier League. But come back not next season, the season after.
We might get you in a cup.
Yeah,
you never know.
You still get put in the 3rd round of the FA Cup in the Championship, Heath. So you don't have to worry about that 1st and 2nd round problem. You still
Success.
Might have a chance. You're already on a cup run. Awesome.
I think it's taking the small wins while you can get them and just rolling with the punches here, Heath. So, guys, overall, from an FPL perspective, thoughts on how the season went and looking at the different themes for the season. It was a really, really weird season to be playing FPL.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we still obviously had that stupid 5-letter word called COVID causing problems, didn't it? And I mean, FPL were kind enough to give people an additional free hit chip, weren't they? I believe, which is not happened. So yeah, I think it made it difficult for all FPL players because you're like saving up chips for double game weeks, and then double game weeks kept changing. You didn't know when one would come in. Then all of a sudden you get 5 or 6, and then you're like, well, which one do I go for here? And I think a lot of FPL players, in groups that I'm in, I'm sure the same with the rest of you, and just from people I follow on Twitter, everyone was out there going, so when do I play my chips here? It's a big thing. I play my chips probably a lot earlier than a lot of people, but it was just the torment really of putting everyone through it. And everyone at that time saying this is just a farce. I'm sure people probably gave up on FPL this year because of the hassle with the fixtures, which is probably a shame. But it was definitely a new challenge, I think, for FPL managers. And I enjoyed it in the sense that it was a challenge. But there were weeks when I was pulling what little hair I have left out of my head as well about it.
I agree. I think it was a really reactive kind of game this year, whereas previous years you could plan 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance. We got to the stage this year where fixtures were changing and being cancelled after the deadline had passed, and it was just an absolute shit show. I don't actually think the free hits extra chip was very helpful for a lot of people. And the way Matt and I used it, for example, was just using it in 37 right at the end of the season because we were able to adapt without it. But I think there's a very good argument for just removing all chips from FPL. If I was going to make one change to the game, I'd keep the 2 wildcards and then get rid of all the rest of the chips. Just go back to basics, back to how it used to be. No triple captain, because when it comes off, great, but it rarely comes off. And bench boost has never worked for anyone in history. So that chip can get in the bin. So I think there should be no chips, only 2 wildcards, and that's it for FPL. If I was going to make one change for the new season.
I think my one change would be getting rid of you.
Boring.
Make it much more entertaining. But the season as a whole was really difficult. Like State said, COVID was still running rampant, especially as we got over the winter. And it just felt like it was non-stop. That second half of the season, after about game week 25, there was about 1 or 2 game weeks where at least basically every team had a double at some point in that running. And it just felt like it played too much on your mind. We've all fallen into traps with double game weeks this season, particularly with Watford players, not to mention any names, but we know who they are. So it's just, it's been a little bit of a nightmare. I'm looking forward to getting back to some sort of normality next season. Fingers crossed the winter. Well, we've got the World Cup in the winter, so that's going to throw a whole nother spanner in the works with players coming back and fitness levels and all those sorts of things. So, because I think there's just over about 10 days or so between the World Cup final and then FPL resuming on Boxing Day. So that's going to be another thing to contend with. But I think the main thing for this season, obviously, we named our podcast after it, is Big at the Back was the new tactic for the season with so many strikers underperforming.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to also put out there the amount of big signings there seem to be in the summer. I mean, mainly I think United with Sancho, Ronaldo and Varane, but people like Lukaku and Grealish, people like these clubs spending so much money on these players. And straight away, as FPL player, you see them and you think, all right, I have a bit of Lukaku in my team. He's a very good striker on his day. He's, flat track bully and all that. And they underperformed massively, didn't they? It kind of almost felt like, say Grealish, for an example, kind of FPL-wise, went massively backwards. And he went from being an asset to the complete opposite because you didn't even know he was going to play. And Lukaku, I don't even know what is going on with Chelsea strikers. I don't know what they put in their food there because they've ruined about the last 10, 15 number 9s, whatever. But Werner and Havertz, and it's just ridiculous. Normally when you see all these big signings coming up, even at the moment where you're seeing Jesus signing for Arsenal, you're thinking, I'll have a bit of that, or Haaland at Man City. Last summer, it just felt like those signings were made and it just made no difference to these teams whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. Made it a nightmare for picking players anyway. For strikers, like you said, And that's why, yeah, you're big at the back, a massive hit, to be fair, and it shows with your rankings as well, guys. You know, that was the big thing. I mean, Matt, you mentioned just briefly about the World Cup thing. Do you think, you know, the Premier League itself should bring in the transfer window sort of to make it interesting? Bring in the transfer window while the World Cup's on, you know, so clubs can't. And because everyone always goes out and makes signings straight after the World Cup. Well, let's make them gamble on it while the games are going on, right? So, you know, let's
I could just imagine every club and their representatives in Qatar just trying to do business between games.
It'd be awesome, wouldn't it? It'd be just complete and utter chaos. I mean, it just sounds perfect for everything that this World Cup's going to be, to be honest with you. You know, it's a winter World Cup. You know, we've never seen that before, I don't think. Well, definitely not in our lifetimes, we haven't. So, yeah, I think putting something crazy in there, like a transfer window for December, would be fantastic. Someone's driving up on Christmas Day to sign papers to start Boxing Day. That'll get him in the shit with his family, won't it? That'd be fantastic.
I can envision it already with West Ham would sign someone and then they'd get into the next game and he'd break his leg.
It's like a Marco Boogers or something.
Yeah, something like that. Like when we had Kieran Dyer and he signed in the summer for a big fee, and then in the League Cup second round or something, he broke his ankle.
Only to West Ham. Only West Ham can do that sort of thing.
Well, I don't know. I can think of a few the other way as well. Andy Carroll signing for Liverpool as a last-minute dash and grab, and then just not being fit for a single game for his entire Liverpool career. I use funny letters because he didn't really have a Liverpool career. His career consisted of 2 goals against Arsenal, and that was it. And even Robbie Keane did that. But yeah, I think I like the idea of just an absolute embrace the chaos mentality for the Premier League. For when games are on, that's the only time the transfer window is open. After that, you've got no hope until the end of the season of signing someone. So you'll sign someone, then he'll break his leg, or you'll sign someone and it turns out he just had one good game. Yeah. They've got to make their decisions there and then based on what's happening in front of them and no other data. I think if we're going to go in, we've just got to go in full throttle and embrace the chaos.
Balls deep.
Perfect.
So this season, I think the underlying theme is big at the back and the strikers suck. Just on that as well, the strikers, even the ones that were good last season, so the Bamford, the Watkins, the Calvert-Lewin, all of them became terrible this year. And I think the collapse of Everton was hilarious to watch. It's a shame they didn't go down in the end because it was just hilarious from start to finish. But that aside, I'm not sure there's any other... Southampton's potential collapse. They had a very, very poor second half of the season. Other than that, every other team did essentially what we expected them to do. Liverpool and City competing for the title, Chelsea and Spurs in 3rd and 4th. You could say Arsenal underperformed, but any other teams that stood out or surprised you guys? Yourself, Heath?
It's got to be United. I mean, I was watching some highlights of the season, and they got dicked on so many times last season. Obviously, twice by Liverpool. They even got dicked on by Watford. I mean, that is bad. But it's just how embarrassing is it for players like Harry Maguire and I mean Wan-Bissaka, but even Bruno Fernandes. You know, Ronaldo. I know he got good stats in the end, but that team just took a massive nosedive last season. I don't even know how they finished where they finished. They didn't deserve to finish there in the end. I think they just had a couple of games where things worked out for them and then found themselves in that position. But for the amount of money they spend, it's an absolute disaster of a club at the moment. And who knows where they're going to go, but they had a shocker, absolute shocker.
I know how they finished where they finished, and that's because West Ham bottled it on the last game of the season because we just can't beat Brighton. We haven't beaten them since they've been in the Premier League, and we never will beat them. So we can already write that off. We play them, I think, in like the 3rd or 4th game of the season. So transfer all of your West Ham assets out that week.
Yeah. I mean, I think Brighton were a surprise package. I mean, everyone knows they can play good football, and Graham Potter's got and do things, but they came 9th. They scored 42 goals in the season. So to come 9th still with that is, I think, pretty damn impressive. I think they were a real sort of real bright light to watch them. Obviously spanking Man United and second or third to last game of the season was obviously a good highlight for everybody as well. And I think, for me, they were like a surprise package in sort of how well they did. And I think, Everton, everyone enjoyed sort of seeing them struggle. It was a massive surprise seeing Everton down there. I think everyone not many would have put Everton in that bottom sort of relegation battle at the start of the season, not with the sort of players they've had, but like you said, players didn't play well. They start the season well. I think they won the first 3 games or something stupid, and then but the fans were never happy with Benitez. It was a wrong appointment, because I'm sure that had an effect on the team as well, because the fans weren't pleased about it. So Everton were definitely them and Brighton were, for me, the 2 big sort of surprises in terms of the Premier League itself on that front. I think that's for sure, definitely.
Talking about surprises, Matt and I both predicted Crystal Palace to go down after their huge reshuffle, and they were really, really good to watch for the whole season. I think we said it before, but their goal difference actually is much, much better. They had a goal difference of 4. If you look at the team below them, Brentford had -8. The team above them, Newcastle, had -18. Their goal difference shows that they're far better than their 12th place finish. And considering we both had them down for relegation, Vieira being unproven, massive reshuffle, I think they've had a really, really strong season as well. And they've been enjoyable to own from an FPL standpoint as well. I think we all, well, apart from State, but I think we would have owned Gallagher for parts of the season. Zaha, who is Matt's favourite player, only scores when Matt doesn't have him in the team.
Heath loves Zaha as well. Heath is a big fan,
Yeah, Zaha always scores against Watford.
Enemy.
So, yeah, exactly. He relegated us with his goals. So.
Well, it's also one of my moments of the season is Roy Hodgson just going and celebrating with the Palace fans and going and hugging Wilf Zaha after he's relegated you. That is top-notch shithousery, and I'm there for it.
Expect to hear that later in the shit list, I reckon. I think that's
spoiler alert.
That's 100% guaranteed to be on there. If it's not, there'll be some issues. That's for sure.
I think it's also worth moving away from Crystal Palace and Wilf Zaha, talking about Newcastle and like their rebirth. I don't know who was more surprised, us or Amanda Staveley, because she looks very surprised. But I would say that Newcastle's recovery from where they were, I genuinely thought we played them, I think around January. They played us, Norwich and Burnley, and they could, I think they got a point maybe against Burnley. I thought, they're definitely down now. They're definitely down. But realistically, whatever Eddie Howe did, got them working, got them playing together. And they did spend some money in January, but they didn't go crazy. Yeah, but apart from Bruno Guimaraes, I wouldn't say they bought anyone that outstanding, really.
No, but they went out there. They bought a really solid centre-half as well, in Dan Burn, playing for Brighton. They got a Target from Villa, fullback, playing because they obviously want to go get Digne. Yeah, the Bruno in midfield, fantastic signing. It shored things up. They shored things up around the pitch. Trippier, big signing. They brought in experienced players who know what the Premiership's like and have played in it plenty and have been in teams that are not. The big thing they did was they didn't go and sign players who've been relegated from other teams, basically, which is what everyone who gets promoted ends up going and doing, so they'll come to Watford and Norwich and try and pick their players. And I never understand that. They went and signed proven Premier League players who stayed there. And the only reason they could do that, though, was because they had the money still. I mean, because, Brighton and that, obviously Dan Burn must have wanted to go, but I'm pretty sure because he heard it with Newcastle coming, he thought, I'm going to get a big wage hike here. If it had been Burnley coming knocking on the door, he wasn't going to be going at Burnley, was he? He was going to go to Newcastle for that. But I agree with what you're saying, though. He got them transformed, and yeah, they were extravagant signings, but I still believe, without the money, they wouldn't have been able to go and sign out, half of those players. Trippier must be on a right whack, for them, and he was massive for them. So, but yeah, they did brilliant to get back there, Heath. So I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think that, it's Howe's done an all right job. But let's see what happens now when they're expected to actually achieve things and teams know that what they're about. They're going to be more motivated to play them because they're like, Newcastle got money. that's going to turn these buggers over. I reckon they've got, people are saying, oh, we're going to get Europe next season. Not a bloody chance, lads. If you get in top half, you'll have had a good season. They're already upset me, as you can tell, these bloody Geordies. So
that's one bold prediction to write down. Newcastle, top half.
Well, that'll be at best. That'll be at best they'll get top half. I still don't think
that's very bold. I think we were saying in our podcast a few weeks ago, Newcastle, if you look at since Howe joined, I think they're third in the Premier League for points since Howe joined Newcastle. Their turnaround, they brought players and they've spent a bit of money, but they haven't necessarily spent on star players. And as we've seen from Man U, spending money doesn't equal success. So I think they've done really well. And I probably wouldn't back them for Europe, given the teams around them. You'd expect United to come back stronger. But 7th, 8th place, maybe, potentially. Europa Conference League, I say is a fair shout for Newcastle, assuming West Ham do absolutely crash and burn that.
Well, you can bank on that, so that's one less team they've got to worry about. But I can see them pushing top 8. Obviously, it depends who they bring in. They've already made a couple of signings, a couple of more names floating about out there as well. So they've got the money to go out there. I was surprised when Howe got the job in the first place. I thought it'd be like a 6-month appointment, essentially, to get them through to the end of the season, make sure they stay up. But now they've got to keep him, and the things he's done there, like Joe Linton becoming this marauding box-to-box midfielder all of a sudden, seems to have worked wonders.
Not going to be a top 4 side with fucking Joe Linton in it.
No.
That's the worrying part that they think that he has limits still.
I've got to say though, next season Wilson will probably be the first name in my FPL team. I think he finished the season so strongly, and when he's hit, in that Newcastle side, he could score so many goals. So I think he's going to be, assuming he doesn't get injured over the summer, which is a big assumption to be fair, but he'll be the first name in for me.
Yeah. Well, you look at that, obviously the lack of strikers that we've had to pick from, because of the game's persistence to put strikers as midfielders. Wilson, injury prone, which has always been his problem, but he'll score goals. Jamie Vardy missed a decent chunk of the season, but when he came back into the season, as soon as he started playing, he scored goals. Probably cost Heath our title because he came through for me on a few double game weeks, and I captained him 1 week. And Vardy's record, everyone knows if he plays games, he's going to start. Of course, he's going to probably start getting injuries now. He's getting older, and the way he plays, he's 100%. He's just, he's the running he does. Michael Owen had to retire basically after he finished at Liverpool, really, because he couldn't do that anymore. Jamie Vardy's in his mid-30s doing that. And I think, like you said, people like him and Callum Wilson, if they stayed fit for a season, they'll be picked by so many people as strikers. The cheaper options than the likes of Kane and Ronaldo. I mean, I know Kane still came good back half of the season, but I think you'd rather do that, and then you're freeing up your money then for your big ones, your KDBs, your Salahs, and whoever else you're thinking this season.
I don't think you should be going near Vardy because I don't think he should be starting for Leicester. Kalichi, Ian, Nacho should be starting every game for Leicester all of the time. I'm just leaving that there.
Heath, do you want to take that one?
Well, he was incredible last season, not last season, the season before. He was incredible. I don't know really what happened last season. I don't know if he's fallen out with Brenda or something like that. I'm not too sure, but
he sort of played in the 10 role, didn't he? And because I think Maddison and Brendan weren't getting on as much. So then Ian actually played the 10 role behind Vardy. And Vardy creates chances for whoever's in that 10 role, and I think he benefits from it because he can finish. There's no doubt the quality of him, but he's not the front man because he just doesn't work. He doesn't play. That's his problem. His work rate, it's lazy. Yeah,
but we've been speaking about him in every single Big at the Back episodes, and he's kind of our cult hero. So
your cult hero.
Well, my cult hero. I'll take this one. When he comes back very strong next season, you watch Ian Nacho for the Golden Boot. Well, not a prediction. Do not write it down, Matthew Higgins.
Yeah,
too late.
We lost both our cult heroes in relegation battle. We lost Brownhill from Burnley. He's gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
We lost Omabadelli from Norwich. You know, 2 cult heroes we had early.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. God, I've not had my second beer yet. I will be able to say that. But yeah, I think they were our cult heroes maybe this season. You were obsessed with Brownhill. You absolutely loved him.
Brownhill was great because after, I think it was our 3rd episode, State was calling him Marcus Brownhill throughout the whole episode. At the end of it, we realised his name was Josh Brownhill, and he was the one who scored the winner against Watford that pretty much relegated us. So, and then obviously Zaha finished us off. So going back to Zaha again. But Brownhill was is pivotal in our podcast as a cult hero. It's a shame he's gone down.
Him and Michael Keane. Michael Keane was a good man for us.
Michael Keane, who had the shit list named after him for so long and eventually got himself off it. Matt said something a while ago to me. He was saying that Michael Keane is the player that everyone thinks Harry Maguire is.
Yeah, he's like Maguire. Everyone has this image of him as being absolutely useless, and he's a donkey and everything goes wrong. He's not actually that bad, but Keane is.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the thing. I think Maguire's just had an awful season, and footballers have bad. That he's just got no confidence whatsoever. When he was at Leicester, and even the season before, he's been brilliant at England. The fact is the guy's just had a stinker, and I think it actually came from Leicester when they played him away from home last season, where he just had an awful game, and it never quite recovered. And I think, to be honest, we were making jokes about Michael Keane, but I've never seen, a couple of players playing so poorly, making such big mistakes consistently throughout the season. Both Michael Keane and Harry Maguire. Keane obviously more than Maguire, but Maguire as well. And the thing is that Maguire's at the biggest club, arguably in the world in club football. He's got nowhere to hide, whereas Keane could probably hide behind Yerry Mina a little bit. But yeah, it's just so bad. But I think with the new manager, I think Maguire will be better. And if not, he'll just go down to a lower club, and he'll do much better. And Man United will try and sign him again or something.
He screams a West Ham signing and it'll be rubbish. Even more, like it'll just get worse. The only thing he's missing is the injury proneness.
Say what you like about Maguire, he plays every game for club and country. And he's not very good in a lot of them for club, but he definitely is for country. I think Michael Keane towards the end of the season, though, started out of nowhere, I think the last 3 games, pulling out really, really strong performances. And it basically got Lampard out of trouble, effectively. So I think Michael Keane has avoided my shit list for that reason, just for those last 3 games of the season.
I think he scored against West Ham.
Yeah, he got a goal. Yeah,
he scored against Palace, I think, when they stayed up as well. I think that's where he got the honorary when he was taken off the shit list name title. So
they just shored up a little bit more at the back for a few games, didn't they? They got clean sheets against Chelsea, Watford, Man United. They got a few clean sheets which they hadn't got all season. And like you said, yeah, it coincided with him stop being an absolute dickhead and giving the ball away in his own penalty area, missing blatant clearances, probably putting the ball in the back of his own net. Like I said, he started remembering, I can actually play football, or I used to be able to, and start doing things properly again, maybe. So, yeah, fair play to him. And we took him off our shit list because of that. We did recognise that. We're not blind to the ongoings, as much as we wanted to keep him on there because we felt it was funny. But he deserved to come off it at the end of the season, that's for sure.
I think I have to retract my earlier statement. He didn't score against West Ham. It was Holgate that scored against West Ham. Keane got sent off. 2 yellows. I remember it now. Absolutely terrible.
He'll have been on the shit list that week, I guarantee.
Yeah.
I think going back to themes as well of the season, having the fans back after COVID, I think Everton and definitely Leeds as well really kind of like found that they were at home. They just had this kind of new confidence at the back end of the season when they needed points. And Everton, I mean, they were unplayable. Even when they played Liverpool at the end of the season, they put in such a great performance. You just thought, oh, they're going to get themselves out of trouble here. But they couldn't win away from home. But at home, they were unbelievable. And I think that is one of the things that, if it was in COVID times, like proper, with no fans and stuff, I think probably Everton and Leeds may have gone down. But yeah, the fans kind of got behind them and kept them up.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Everton, for most of the season, their away form was the worst out of any club in the top 5 leagues up until about game week 35 or something like that. So you're right, it was completely the home form that saved their bacon this season. Biggest surprise of the season for you guys? State, what are your thoughts?
Biggest surprise. Probably have to go with Man United re-signing Ronaldo. That was my biggest surprise of the season, which probably doesn't sound like much of a surprise to most people. I just don't see because of how Solskjaer got them going. Obviously, they came second the season before, and he were playing with this pace and high press and everything like that, and that was his game. And then you saw that first game of the season, right? Man United. They played against Leeds, didn't they? Newcastle or Leeds. I think it was Leeds, actually. And they spanked Leeds first game of the season. Fernandes, looking like he was going to have another great season like he'd had, the previous year and everything. And, they started well there. Yeah, they drew at Southampton. Then they won at Wolves. Then they signed Ronaldo. And it was a big surprise for me. I don't think Solskjaer wanted that signing. I think, obviously, because City were obviously snooping around him, they didn't want City to have him. And, I can understand that. If he'd have gone to City, well, things City would probably won Champions League as well. And as that, because Ronaldo would have just added that end product. But it just didn't suit what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was trying to play. I'm not a Man United fan. I know lots of Man United fans who just love Ronaldo so much he can't do anything wrong. But I just didn't think it suited what Solskjaer was trying to do with that team. And, it's had big effect on players, Bruno and others. And everyone's going to be saying, oh, well, but Ronaldo saved our season, blah, blah, blah. He saved your season. You still came fucking 6th, man. Is that saving Man United's season? You came second the year before. So, no, he didn't save your season at all. You came 4 places worse. And you're saying, oh, it's all, Ronaldo saved you. Well, no, he didn't, because you were far, far worse than you were the previous year. And guess what? All the other players you had were pretty much all still there. Obviously there was problems with Greenwood. That's something you can't comprehend. But you had Varane, better centre half. Obviously he got injuries, but it just highlighted that. I thought that everything Solskjaer was trying to get United to be, I think that just signing just killed it for him and for that. And as much as I rate Ronaldo, I love him pieces as a footballer. He's great and it's achieved so much. That was a big surprise for me that United actually wanted to go down that route. And I think it's like going back in the Stone Age for me, and they digress because of it.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. I think Ronaldo as an individual did not have a bad season, but in terms of the impact he had in the team, you're absolutely right. I think my biggest surprise was how badly all of the big summer signings did. So Jack Grealish, we've mentioned already, completely anonymous the whole season. Ronaldo, as you said, the impact on the team was so negative. And the worst of all was Lukaku, who is now looking like, after signing for £100 million, he's moving back to Inter Milan on a loan for £8 million, which is probably the worst piece of business that has ever been done in football. I mean, I'd argue Neymar for 220 million is as bad, but still, that is absolutely horrendous. And I think it was doomed from the moment he came out and said, I wish I had stayed at Inter Milan after like 3 games for Chelsea or something like that. But I think the biggest surprise was all of those signings, as we mentioned before, just having absolutely zero impact on the season. You'd argue that Luis Diaz and Kulusevski for Liverpool and Spurs in the winter, halfway through the season, had more impact than any summer signings did. So that, for me, was the biggest shock that we saw.
I think, yeah, I was potentially going to mention Lukaku here as the biggest disappointment of all of them, but I've gone for the other side of the coin and the more positive surprise, and I'm sticking close to home, and I'm going with my boy Jared Bowen. What a season that guy had. I think he started off at 6.5 mil at the start of the season in FPL. He was the third highest scoring midfielder, only behind Salah and Son, which when you consider the competition in that area, I think is incredible. And if you're looking at points per million, he far outperforms anyone else. And just purely on the pitch, his returns, I think in all competitions, it was something like 18 goals and 11 assists, 12 of which were in the Premier League as goals. So I think he I enjoy. He looked good when he first signed. He had that little bit of a bedding in period, but this last season he's just gone on to new heights and obviously ended the season with his England call-up, which I think was thoroughly deserved. So I'm going for slightly more positive thing. Jared Bowen's mine. What about you, Heath?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the positivity, and I'm going to go with the guy who ruined my season, which is Mo Salah. I honestly, I can't believe we did during the season, we did the greatest ever FPL player of all time. And it's very, very hard not to argue for Mo Salah to be the greatest FPL player of all time, because at one point, I think he might have had like 1 week or something up until around AFCON or something like that, where he hadn't, got some kind of attacking return. The guy was just scoring every single week. Even after AFCON, he smashed United and scored plenty of points there as well. But he was unbelievable. And normally, I think previously Liverpool have kind of shared the points around Mane and Salah, and Firmino will kind of come in and get a few. But this season, Mane did score points, but it was just a Salah show. And it kind of, in a way, made FPL a bit crap in a way, because you had to have him, really, let's be honest. And then I think after AFCON, his form dipped slightly, but realistically, by then, everyone had him, and they weren't going to take him out for love nor money. But yeah, how good he was during that season is, it's another level. And I think that was pretty surprising how consistent he was.
Yeah.
At least you didn't have him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I fucking hated the guy.
To be fair, the way he started, if he'd have carried on as consistently after AFCON as he'd done before, he'd be breaking the 300-point barrier again at FPL, which he obviously did on that sort of first full season back, didn't he? And but now 2 great picks there, and Jared Bowen, I had him in my draft team all season, and he was just a star for me in my draft league. So absolute belting season. I thought he actually looked pretty decent in the England games, which was pretty difficult to do, given not many of them did. But he still looked like he was full of energy, lively, and didn't do himself any harm in terms of a World Cup year, that's for sure. So good night. 2 good picks, guys. Glad for a bit of positivity. Not my cup of tea, but it's good that some of us did have something positive to say, really.
That international break was so pointless, wasn't it? But I won't get on my high horse about that. I've done that already.
I think we all feel the same way about that. The international break and just the Nations League in general. Let's move on to the part of the podcast we have all been waiting for. Now, Heath, I think as it's you guys, why don't you introduce this part?
Yeah, so this is the shit list. And if you guys have not listened to the North versus South podcast this season, we basically have, I think we've actually done this in every single podcast, because we do love a little bit of negativity within our podcast. So we basically pick 5 players or things or anything we could. The weather has been mentioned. We've been mentioned ourselves. Anything can go onto this shit list, but we basically need 5 things. And I guess really my co-host from the North versus South has probably got to go first, because let's be honest, you're going to be all out of ideas if you go last, mate. So I think you should start us off here.
Okay. I'll tell you what I'll do 2 of mine, shall I? 2, and then we can look at letting somebody else out a couple, because I don't want to just take all the best ones, It's just be rude, wouldn't it? So, right. So, first one on my shit list is a player. He was a big signing for a team that got relegated. His name is Cornett, not Cornet, Cornett. Okay, so Maxwell Cornett is on my shit list, right? And this guy promised a lot. He had a few good game weeks, and don't get me wrong, he's a good footballer. He scored 9 goals in a Burnley team. I mean, anyone who scores 9 goals in a Burnley team's obviously got smut about. But the bugger cost me game weeks. He missed penalties. He gave goals away. He missed one-on-ones. He missed some bloody sitters. The guy cost me game weeks, and I shed you not. There was a couple of game weeks, one or 2 points, and he personally cost me them. He's been on my radar, but I couldn't not keep him in because Burnley kept having back end of the season double game week, and he was doing everything, but he was doing everything wrong, and he nearly cost me the FPL. So he's on my shit list for the season. It's Mr. Maxwell Cornett. Please pronounce it correctly next season. If he's in Premier League, it's Cornett. Okay, so that's my first one on the shit list. My second one is this is going to be controversial, but I don't really give a crap if people agree with me or not. It's Mo Salah, because the second half of the season he nearly cost me as well. And I'm all about the fact that I was needed to win this season. Okay, he's beaten me every time we've done this before, and I needed this. Now he obviously did great for me first half of the season. I won't ever forget that. But at the end of the day, he came back from AFCON, and if anyone knows the film Space Jam, I think sudden aliens had come in and taken his powers away and put him somewhere else. I think to Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, actually, I think he gave them. But yeah, Salah nearly cost me, and AFCON nearly cost me. So I'll merge them together. Salah and AFCON nearly costing me. So like I said, it's controversial, but that second half of the season, if it had just carried on how we were, there'd have been no problem. It'd have been a landslide, which I know wouldn't have been fun for the viewers and listeners, but it has stopped me from stressing as much towards the end of the season. So that's my first two guys. I'll pitch you over Tom, I reckon. I think he deserves a good rant because, I reckon he's got plenty to go on it as well.
And the first name on my shit list, it's a person, and it's, of course, Matthew Higgins. And the reason, guys, honestly, he could take up all 5 spots on this shit list for the season, to be honest. Double booking on the day we were meant to do this pod, causing it to delay for a month. You deserve that alone. Beating me again on FPL, being a douchebag throughout the season, being a goalkeeper and talking about it all the time. You deserve that number 1 spot on the shit list. And let no one ever take that away from you. It's yours. You've earned it, Matt. So well done.
Just something else that I'm number 1 at.
We're not talking about that. This is my shit list. Don't take this away from me. Right. Number 2 on my shit list is FPL. So many times FPL screwed the player base over this season. We mentioned that second free hit, throwing everything into disarray, but then fixture changes and cancellations after the deadlines, just price changes all the time. Expected ownership can fuck off forever. But I think FPL has been less fun thanks to the way it's run this season. And I think they've reacted very poorly to very difficult situations throughout the year. So for that reason, FPL is second on my shit list. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Heath. We'll just do 2 at a time.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think the first person that goes onto my shit list is, and it has to be really Michael Keane. It has to be. I mean, how he's not been mentioned already, I don't know. Honestly, it feels like we're doing one of those drafts and I'm thinking Michael Keane. Well, I've got him now. The guy obviously was making mistakes. You can't see in FPL, right? Because you don't lose points for mistakes. But then he was also scoring own goals. And if he wasn't scoring own goals, he was getting himself sent off. And if he wasn't getting himself sent off, he was making more mistakes. The guy was a disaster. And like Tom did say, to be fair, he did pick it up the last few games. So he kind of got himself away from our shit list, but overall as a season, the guy had a disaster, and he's rightfully number 1 on my shit list, and he should be on everyone else's shit list number 1, right? Number 2, Kurt Zouma, the cat. simple as that. I mean,
no
what are
issues.
you doing?
No issues with that.
The guy is, I mean, I've been bored in my life, but the last thing I thought of is booting a cat around my kitchen. I mean, come on, Kurt, you're better than that, and you've let yourself down. You've let West Ham down. You let Matt Higgins down. I can tell you that. I can see it in his face right now. No, it was a disaster for Kurt, and he's number 2 for kicking cats.
I don't know if the cat bitten him or anything. I don't know the full story.
No, but it sounded like he just, it was like a hobby of his or something. So maybe he had a very mean cat and they just had a terrible relationship. But, end of the day, we saw what we saw on video, right? Didn't see the cat scratching him. So what about you, Matt? What are you thinking for your shit list?
Just to round off the Kurt Zouma situation, I like that you call it a hobby. So I can imagine it on his dating profile, like reading long walks on the beach and kicking cats. But at least it wasn't a dog, eh? Like that could have been much worse. But the top space on mine actually surprised me when I was looking back through my stats for the season. And for me, it's from a personal FPL perspective, it's Jamie Vardy. And the reason being, I missed the boat with Vardy every time. I had him in my team 6 game weeks for a grand total of 7 points. And for a striker of his price, that is just unacceptable. And then I thought about getting him back in later in the season, and I'm pretty sure I sent Tom a free hit draft of game week 37, which had Vardy in it. And he went on to get Hull, and I had taken him out by that point, and I didn't actually go with him. So for that reason and that reason alone, he takes top spot on my shit list for this season. And then second, just as a sort of a wider, it's just strikers in general. I mean, up until the last sort of maybe the final third of the season, it was just a complete disappointment. The mid-range strikers started off all right with Antonio, who carried me through the first couple of months of the season, but then it all went downhill from there. So just the absolute waste of space of some of the strikers that I had throughout the season. Adam Armstrong, Armando Broja, Lacazette, he had one good week for me. Like overall, strikers were a massive disappointment, and they can be redeemed next year with the likes of Haaland and Nunez coming in, which will make it a lot more difficult to actually pick a team. But I'll send it back over to State for your next 2 then.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm liking it so far, guys. Some good calls in there, very good calls. The FPL call, I mean, just for game week 30, the FPL call would be on mine. I mean, I've got several other reasons for it, but that game week 30, when the game week before that and the game week after, somehow I had like about 12 fixtures, and they could only have 4 on that game week. And there was only one, I think there were 2 northern teams and 6 southern teams, so that affects me up a game week as well. So, but, that to go along with, like I said, just the craziness of that, FPL are on mine, so I'll back that up and use that as one of mine, to be honest with you. The other one, back to a player who I felt really underperformed for me, was a player who was really exciting to watch, to be honest with you. It's Mr. Alan Saint-Maximin. Now, yeah, you watch this guy and he's dangerous. He runs at people, he takes them on, he does lots, and you're just watching him and thinking, God, this guy's going to be a points machine. He's fucking not a points machine. I mean, 116.5 goals and 7 assists is not what you're expecting from someone like him. Yeah, he's not the most expensive person in the world, but I tell you what, if there's a player who plays so well, you mentioned a bit like, Foden doesn't quite get, maybe the points that you'd expect him to get from the player that he is, but Saint-Maximin massively flatters to deceive, and I think, especially given how Newcastle needed him, he always looked dangerous, but he just never gets assists, never gets enough goals, and it just really, really pissed me off, basically. He was costing me again this season, so from my point of view, he was on my shit list as well. So my next 2 are FPL and Mr. Alan Saint-Maximin.
That's sad to hear. I think Alan Saint-Max is one of the most fun players in the Premier League.
Definitely.
Really, really, from a footballing perspective, just so fun to watch. But from an FPL perspective, and moving him to a striker this season didn't help either. I think he's got to be a midfielder again next season, surely.
If you're having Salah and the likes of him as a midfielder, then St. Maximin is 100% a midfielder.
Massively.
I would say so. So next to my shit list is a player that hasn't been mentioned yet. It's Reece James. And it's very similar to Matt's Vardy situation. I had Vardy at the right times, Matt had him at the wrong times. Well, the opposite can be said for Reece James. I had him for every 0, every 1, every 2, and 1 week he got 13. But whenever he got 18, 21, 17, 20, Matt had always seemed to captain him, and I just didn't have him in the team. Admittedly, it's not quite as good as Matt's brother, who benched him for an 18-point haul, but I think Reece James, just for being so shit when I owned him and so good when I didn't, definitely takes the third spot on the shit list. Fourth spot, I am stealing from Matt because I had strikers down, all strikers. I was looking at the stats earlier, and the players I had that got me the lowest points per game was last place was Ollie Watkins with 0.7 FPL points per game. Second last was Neil Maupay with 0.8 points per game that I owned him. And I think that just sums up the strikers. All of them were terrible all season. You can make an argument, like you said, for Kane, but if you had Kane, then you didn't have Son. So I think even Kane was a really bad striker to own. So overall, the strikers on FPL, I think, have been horrific this season.
Yeah, totally agree. And next season, like I was saying earlier, it looks very exciting for what could happen. But it's crazy to think of like the options that you used to have back in the day. And then last season, it just felt like everyone had a 6 million striker, like either 1, maybe 2, or even 3 6 million strikers, and just, went big at the back, like, you guys recommend, or had like a 5-man midfield. But it was very, very tough. I'll be honest with you, like, I was actually very tempted to go with Reece James as my third pick, because I think I did have a couple of hauls, but as someone who only owns Southern players, Reece James is my Trent Alexander-Arnold. But there's someone else who I kind of dislike more, and he's been on my shit list, is Thomas Tuchel. Has to be on there. Chelsea have always been renowned for being strong at the back because they're very consistent at the back, and they keep the same back 4 or 5. And you know that Aspilicueta is going to play every week. You know that Rudiger is going to play every week. And if Reece James and Chilwell are fit, they should play. Alonso might get in there for Chilwell, but that's you know that's going to happen. Tuchel this season went Maverick. He went, and that's just a little reference for the old Top Gun film that's just come out. But he's gone absolute Maverick on us this season. And where I thought that I was in a safety zone of having 3 Chelsea defenders, I didn't. And yeah, it screwed me over massively, especially those last maybe like 2 or 3 game weeks out of the last 5 or 6 where I lost them, where I needed Chelsea points. When you can only really rely on Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal, maybe a couple of others from certain, like West Ham, maybe, because they had a good season. But yeah, I needed Tuchel to not do the rotation that he was doing, but he screwed me over massively. And then keeping with the Chelsea vibe, I mean, we've mentioned him a couple of times already tonight, but Romelu Lukaku or any Chelsea striker, Jesus Christ. Werner and Havertz, I know Havertz is technically a midfielder, attacking midfielder, but he plays up front for Chelsea. But they were good before they went to Chelsea. They were actually good football players. What did Chelsea do to these strikers, honestly?
Werner had 3 good games, Heath. What are you talking about? That makes the season.
But like, it's ridiculous. Like, when you look back at the Chelsea strikers that used to be around, you just think that they don't really, I mean, apart from maybe, again, Hazard is technically a midfielder, but, he's the only person I can think of out of Chelsea's front line who consistently used to get points. I mean, maybe Mason Mount might do going forward, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just a bit of a shit show with Chelsea. I'm hoping that next season it might be a little bit easier to pick players from there, but yeah, it's definitely a Chelsea dominated 3 and 4 there for me.
I can take some credit for Havertz's good form. As soon as I sent that tweet saying that he was a terrible footballer, he went on a nice little streak. So he did come back down to earth with a bang a few weeks later. So I was just a little bit off timing with that tweet. My third pick goes to a player that I had in my team for 1 game week last season. And I'd like to cast your minds back to game week 15 as Norwich travelled to White Hart Lane, a resurgent Spurs team. And I brought in and captained Sergio Reguilon, thinking that is a rogue shout, but that's going to get me big points. He proceeded to get booked and subbed off after 21 minutes for a grand total of 0 points. And he was straight out of my team again, never to be seen again. So that was the point. I think it was an early kickoff maybe as well. At that point, I just switched off from football for the rest of the weekend. I'd had enough.
That was great. I loved that weekend.
It was devastating for me.
Heath had a lot of good joy with Reguilon early doors in the season as well.
No, I did have him in that Norwich game though, and I remember exactly that. I was walking down to Sevenoaks High Street, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, it's 1-0 or 2-0 to Spurs, and I was thinking happy days, Reguilon clean sheet, and I had exactly Matt's issue. I could not believe it. I thought it was a guaranteed 6 points at least.
It was painful. And I'm going to continue my theme here of bad captaincy choices. And Emmanuel Dennis has to be on there. That we were all lured into a full sense of security with these double game weeks this season. State mentioned it with Burnley towards the end of the season, with all their double game weeks, and Cornett underperforming. Thank you. And Van Veghorst as well was an absolute disappointment. But Emmanuel Dennis, double game week, first game, red card, basically ruined my honeymoon because I was in Jamaica at that point. Pretty much threw the wife into the pool in anger. He takes full spot for my third and fourth spot with terrible captaincy choices.
I'm just going to jump in here and just say that, again, Matt, I know your pain. I went out with my best men to ask them to be my best men. We went for a nice steak dinner in London. We're having a great time. One of them goes to the toilet, comes back and goes, "Hey, if you never guess what's happened." And I'm thinking, he sounds very excited. "Have you seen the Watford score?" I said, "Well, this sounds very promising." He said, "You're losing 3-0. Oh, fuck. And Dennis has been sent off. Oh, fuck." I was at that moment thinking, should I just give the best man spot to the other guy and ignore the other guy? But fortunately, he's done enough, I guess, just about to hold on to that spot. But yeah, that was absolutely devastating. That's a cardinal sin.
Yeah, you've clearly not read your WhatsApp messages at that point, because I'd messaged you several times after that as well.
Mate, I ignored my phone that night, big time. And for that specific reason, I did not want it to ruin my night. And then, the guy did anyway, so...
I had done a whole lot better that week because I made the sensible move and captained Josh King for 4 points over the double game week. It's the little wins that counts.
Yeah, good captain decisions is key for a season, and you've mastered it there, Tom. Mastered it, mate. Yeah. You could have put João Cancelo as your captain maybe a few weeks. That would have worked well for you, wouldn't it, Heath? Yeah.
Well, going back to Matt, your third pick. So when you said about early captain choices, so like the 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday, for instance, what do you guys think of that? Does that put you off, or do you not give it a shit at all?
The early kickoff, never. It's the cardinal rule. Well, there's 2 cardinal rules: always captain Salah and never captain the early kickoff. And if Salah's in the early kickoff, then the early kickoff rule wins. I think you'll find that the only time Salah blanked before AFCON was when he had the early kickoff. It's the only game he didn't get a goal or assist before AFCON. It's because he was the first game of the game week. So Matt, maybe you're different, but I always stand on don't go near it.
I tend to, but there was one time with Salah, and it was nearer the end of the season, and he did come off. So, but yeah, in general, I try and avoid the early kickoff because, like you say, it just puts a real downer at the start of the week, and no matter what happens after that, you always feel like, oh, I just sort of lose interest.
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's that weird smugness that you can have inside you when it's like, oh, it's all right, my captain's a Monday night game. Oh, he'll smash it. It gets 2 points. You still feel good about yourself because you think, well, at least I've had that time to enjoy what could have been. But yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
I must admit, most of the time I won't do it, but the time I did do it was when City played United, and I messaged Heath saying that, and Cancelo, I captained Cancelo, and he bagged a fair few points, and Heath like, "Oh, what are you captaining him for?" I'm like, just watching weep, pal. 28 points later, he was weeping, that's for sure.
There was one that really paid off, and I'm sure Heath will know this one quite well, was Liverpool had Watford in the early kickoff and won 2-0, and Salah got nothing. I didn't captain him that week. I was one of the only people I know that didn't. And when he got subbed off, because Liverpool got a penalty after he got subbed off as well, it was just perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's not often that as a football fan you celebrate losing 2-0, but when we play Liverpool home or away, or City home and away, if we only keep them down to 2, we're ecstatic about that. And the fact that Salah didn't haul against us was a bit weird. I don't know what happened. Maybe he just took it easy on us that day, because then he scored a fantastic goal against us at Vicarage Road. And yeah, let's not talk about that.
So I think back to state for your final pick of the shit list for the 2021-22 season.
Jurgen Klopp is my final pick. I'm fed up of the twat whining about when teams don't play to how he likes them to play against his side. It's like he expects them to have a given right to beat teams. Spurs are the biggest one. He's like, and I'm like, well, guess what? Conte is a smart man, you know. He came over with Chelsea, won the league comfortably. He's gone everywhere and won leagues because he knows how to set up against teams. And he clearly knows how to set up against you because you can't beat Spurs. Don't get fucking upset about it. Bloody try and beat him in another way. You know, it's quite clear that your fullbacks push on. He's got a man called Son who'll just race past them, and Spurs just put it in that space. And I tell you what, Liverpool should have lost both games to Spurs, in my opinion. Spurs should have got 6 points out of them. White Hart Lane, they dominated. You know, playing on the counter attack, they just dominated Liverpool. And Alisson's a great shot stopper. I mean, you look at the difference between him and Edison's stats. Alisson's a better goalkeeper because, yeah, he probably has more saves to make than Edison, but he makes them. You know, and I think whereas Edison don't make as many one-on-ones. But yeah, Klopp did it, but he did it any game. To be fair, against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, you know, it's like, oh, they don't come here to play football. No, they don't. They come here to stop you from playing football because that's how Diego Simeone sets up. And I went, I have no problem with that. You need to fucking find a way around that. Stop whining about teams not playing to how we want them to play. That's not football. Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, pissed me off big time. All season did Jurgen Klopp with that. You know, and also he started rotating as well, which was annoying from an FPL point of view. He keeps harping on about 5 subs, which I know has been voted in, but obviously 13 other clubs have obviously had to vote that in, so it's not all on him. But I just think, you know, seriously, Jurgen, stop being so bitter when you don't bloody win, when you drop points. You know, it happens. You know, teams sometimes outplay you. You know, they outthink you. You know, and that's if that happens, he just seems to get on his high horse about it and have something to moan about. So it's less of a FPL reason for that, but he's on my shit list for that reason this season. Thank you very much, Jurgen. You've made it to #1 spot for me. That's my #1, my top shit list pick, because it's pissed me off that much this year.
Fun for the defence.
I'll take a breath now, fellas. Sorry. I'm very passionate about that, as you can tell.
Yeah, I love the passion.
I mean, I'm a Liverpool fan and I agree with most of that. I hate it when Klopp starts whining. It's the one side of him I don't like. A couple of things you said were wrong. So Tottenham in that first game, Kane should have got sent off after 5 minutes. Yeah, just you're wrong. Like, let's leave it there. You're wrong.
That's allowed against.
But I do think you're right in saying Conte had Klopp's number. Atletico, everyone's going to whine against them because they're assholes.
Oh yeah,
they are. I don't mind Klopp whining about Atletico because I want to whine about Atletico. Even if I see them playing against Man U like that, I would whine about Atletico. Bloody hate the Spanish three. So I agree with most of what you said there about Klopp, though, about his complaining. I'm not a fan of it. My last pick on the shit list was referees. And Liverpool actually benefited from referees as much as the next team. So it's not a biased thing, but I just think there's no consistency at all. What's given one week won't be given the next week. VAR has a lot to do with it, but it's not a VAR problem, it's a refereeing problem. It's shoddy, it's rubbish. Paul Tierney is the worst ref ever and shouldn't be there. I think the leader of the PGA has now retired. Was it Mike? I can't remember who it was, but he's now retired. So hopefully they bring in some refereeing standards. But I think refereeing in the Premier League, once again, has shown itself to be absolutely shoddy all season across all teams compared to what we're used to seeing in European competitions. So for that reason, referees this year are number one on my shit list.
Yeah, good shout. You can't argue with that. And I agree with what you're saying. It's not all VAR's fault as well, because, I mean, it's there, it can be there to help. I still don't think they've got the process right with VAR at all, but referees have the option then to go to the screens, start using that more, and then you still make the decision, not VAR. VAR should just be giving you an option to, right, maybe you should have a look at the screening and just double check what your thoughts are, and the referee should make that decision. But they've got that process right, and yeah, fully agree with you there.
Yeah,
VAR is only as good as the people that are running it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, sorry, I was going to say, I think VAR was much improved this season, but I think you're right, Tom. I think the referees it's almost like they've kind of gone downhill. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch cricket at all, but the umpires got better when they had technology behind them because they could be a bit more confident with the decisions, where it feels like referees have gone the other way. And it just feels like there's almost an element of they don't want to stitch up the guy who's actually on the pitch, maybe in the VAR box, or the referee himself is stubborn enough, is too stubborn to think I should go over to the screen. I just think it's just like that element of why we've been doing the podcast all season. The amount of times that VAR was on the shit list, and like you say, it's only because of the people running it. It's the fact that there's no common sense, no common kind of like the idea of actually like looking at it from a supporter's perspective and saying, maybe we should kind of just double check that because that doesn't look right. I mean, we've all had decisions go against our teams. I mean, obviously not Rotherham because they're quite low down the pyramid.
Too good to have VAR. We're too good for it.
That's actually one of the good things about.
I'll be upset. I don't want
that is one of the good things about being the Championship, because you can actually enjoy a goal. When a goal goes in and you can look at the lino's flags down, it's a goal. You can really celebrate it. And you guys obviously, you never know, Matt, you might come down with us next season. You never know, mate. But Tom, you probably never experience that ever again unless VAR gets taken away. But yeah, no, the refereeing's been terrible.
Yeah. Great.
And with some extra context, my dad is a lifelong Fulham fan, so I watch 5 or 6 Fulham games a season. So there's a very good chance I will see us in action next season.
Okay, but for my last pick, this is quite a tough one for me. Obviously, I'm tempted to go for Roy Hodgson and put him in as the number one pick, but realistically, I feel like Roy Hodgson's on there probably with the rest of the team I support. Watford have to be on my shit list. They have to be. You obviously know that we had a stinker of a season, but what you might not know is that we had the second worst home record of all time in the Premier League. Only Sunderland have had a worse record with 7 points. We've got 8 points. How bad is that? I mean, the season they bring back the fans and Watford have a terrible home record. I mean, that is really rubbing salt in the wound. But Hodgson goes down in there as well as Ranieri. I got to be honest, you guys, I got suckered into both of them. When they came up, I thought, Ranieri, you never know. The way he plays football, the way he did with Sampdoria, I was excited by the idea he liked playing counter-attacking football. Didn't work at Fulham, but that's maybe because they didn't have the players. And then when Hodgson came in, it was like, well, Hodgson knows how to keep a team up. He's never been relegated. Oh, it's just dog shit, basically, as simple as that. And yeah, we deserve to be relegated. I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I could be going all night. So, yeah. Matt, how about you, mate?
So the last pick for me, and this person has briefly been mentioned. It's not a player. It's not a manager. It's not even anything to do necessarily with FPL. My final pick is my brother, Dan Higgins, who throughout this season has been the one person keeping me from FPL glory. He finished above me in the main 2 leagues I care about. Obviously, not the me and Tom league. That I don't care about that because I know that's a given. I'm going to win that every year anyway. But in the main money league we're in, he finished top, and in our big curry league that we have, he finished top there as well. He finished in the top 5k overall. He had a very good season. Every decision he made, it seemed to come off. He put all the players in at the right times, and just the smug messages I was getting from him throughout footballing weekends, that gives him top spot on my shit list for this season.
Love it.
Nice.
Love that. Love some hatred going out to fellow FPL player. Yeah. It's a must. Especially a smug one as well. We hate them, don't we, Heath? Smug.
Mate, I was about to say, yeah, I know exactly how you feel, Matt. I know exactly how you feel.
I didn't do messages. I normally left voicemails on my way back from football on a Saturday, something like that. To be fair, if you deliberately start ignoring my calls, disgrace.
It's harsh.
I just wanted to catch up. We're not seeing each other as much as we'd like. So yeah. Great shit list there, guys. I think we've covered most things really. To be fair with that, I think everyone's had a piece. So that's good.
Cast a wide net.
Yeah, we probably could have done 10 each if we really had to, guys. Count yourself lucky. Please feel free when you listen to this podcast to send us your 5 season shit list. Tweet it to us all. It'd be great to hear some good ones there.
Yeah, we want as many as we can, and we want them all to have Matt Higgins at number 1. That's the only condition. But no, great shit list, guys. I think we've covered a lot of different topics there. And I think we've all got a bit of hatred out of our system. Last thing, what are we most looking forward to for next season's FPL? State, why don't you kick us off?
God. Spurs. I'm hoping. Well, it's a tough one. I mean, I'm looking forward to, I suppose, a little bit more consistency. But I'll tell you what, I am looking forward to that sort of that World Cup break coming in. And then, obviously, they're not going to take our advice and bring a transfer window in there. It'll open in January. But I think that's where, as we've all seen before in the past, and we mentioned it already, teams would go out then and buy people after World Cups. And normally that's in the summer. So I think that's going to make for a fantastic transfer window, because players are going to put themselves in the market who's unknown. You always get those unknown players from the the supposed lesser countries. It's like the Senegal team in 2002. Then everyone got signed from them, like El Hadj Diouf, Baba Bouba Diop, and all that lot. There's going to be a team who does that, and people are going to go and buy their players. And like you said, you're going to find out that they're going to be absolute tosh after 1 week. But loads of us FPL people are going to jump on them. You're going to be like, yes, do that. And I think that's going to make for a really interesting January, February. People obviously have that second wild card, I'm guessing, which will probably still in place. And, if you haven't wasted it early doors, which, let's be honest, most of us do. I know I do, So it's that second wild card. You're going to wait for those transfers coming in from a World Cup. So I'm really looking forward to how that will influence FPL, for the latter half of the season next year. I think, people will save chips a little bit more maybe because of that as well. I think that they'd be stupid not to. I probably won't, because I'm never that bright. So, but yeah, that for me, I think is going to make for a hell of an interesting second part to the FPL, is because there should be an influx of signings coming in January, more than what we normally see.
Nice, I like it. I think what I'm looking forward to is a bit more variety. I felt like this season, because of the limited options, particularly up front, everyone's team was all very, very similar, and it was everyone picking a squad of 15 out of 25 players. You guys being the exceptions, of course, with the self-imposed rules. But of the normal players, everyone has the same core group of players with 1 or 2 differences. I think the summer transfer window has opened up so many more options. You're looking at Liverpool, there's 5 players you want to own and you can only own 3. City getting a few new faces in. Even things like Gabriel Jesus going to Arsenal suddenly makes him an option. So I'm looking forward to seeing teams looking different this season and a lot more variance. I think it will make the season a lot more fun again. And I think you mentioned earlier, Heath, everyone captaining Salah for so long made it just not fun when he got points. So I'm looking forward to FPL having a lot more variety and being a lot more fun when it goes well for you.
Definitely. They've got to sort that striker thing out big time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with Haaland, with Nunez, with Gabriel Jesus moving over, there's going to be some decent options up front. Wilson, as I said. So I think strikers have had an off season, but hopefully I have faith that they'll be back strong next year. I'll still be going big at the back, of course, but I have faith.
Otherwise, you've got to rename your podcast Big at the Front, something,
Just change it to All Out Attack, the old chip that used to be there about 5 years ago.
The Gung Ho podcast.
What about you, Heath?
Yeah, I to be honest, like as someone who grew up with the kind of like 90s football, I'm very much looking forward to Forest being back in the Premier League. I just think that straight away, I know State's shaking his head. We've got a couple of Forest fans in our group chat that he absolutely loves and adores. But I like the idea, right? We've got Forest fans who are, on paper, a big club, right? European champions back in the day, Brian Clough, all that kind of stuff. The romantic side of me, I don't know if you guys have seen, I Believe in Miracles, the documentary on Netflix, but it's incredible. If you haven't watched it, watch it. But Nottingham Forest, just what I would say is as a fun club. Also, they've got Hooters just outside Nottingham. I don't know if it's still outside the ground.
It is.
I don't know if it's still open.
Yeah.
We had a good time in there. So many chicken wings.
We went there, didn't we, for a Forest Brighton game, Heath, that time?
We were on a stag do and we left the stag do. Well, not early. We went back to the stag do, but we left it halfway just to go to the Forest Brighton game and enjoyed the Hooters. We enjoyed the football and stuff. But the whatchamacallit. So Forest going up. I think Fulham, with Silva could be more enjoyable to watch. I don't know if they'll be any good. And Bournemouth, I don't know if they could. Personally, I think they could have a stinker. But I think with Leeds and Everton having a stinker last season, I think they'll be desperate not to do that again. But all in all, it's a Premier League full of like big clubs or very confident clubs who feel like they could all push forward. Whereas I think last season, as much as I hate to admit it, I think Watford, Norwich were pretty much doomed from the start. I think Brentford way overachieved, and Burnley have been a small club in a big league for many years, and no one really likes them. Really, let's be honest. And it'd be interesting to see. So obviously you're against my thoughts here. What's your beef?
No comment. No. Let's move on to Matt's idea, to be fair, and then I can slate after. Unless you want me to just quickly burn you right now. But
no, mate, I'm all for the burn. Go for it.
Yeah, let's go for the burn.
Forest stars. Fucking looking forward to them being back. No, they've already been big-headed, arrogant pricks. In that group we're in today, some knobhead said they're going to be the highest placed Midlands team in the Premier League next season. I was like, is this guy smoking crack and it's 9 o'clock in the morning? Because seriously, you're competing against Leicester and Wolves, who were both top 10. Villa have already strengthened him massively. So I'm like, you're going to be. But I said, put in the group, if you come 17th, if someone offers you 17th right now, take it. Stop being such a prick. And, you got a little bit lucky in the playoff final. You were the better footballing team, but there was definitely one penalty there. I think the first one was died. But Forest fans already seem to be developing that great deluded feel about being back in the Premier League. I really hope if they continue doing this, I'm going to be put it this way, I'm going to be putting them down for 20th in the division, minus 70 goal difference, and hopefully the lowest points total if they keep going on like this, because they're already boring me with it. And Burnley, everyone loved Burnley. Of course they did.
No. Sorry, no.
Sorry, Southerners don't love Burnley then.
We all like Burnley, but we all like football, but as the in-betweener said, Burnley are the exception and they can fuck off. No one likes Burnley. Let's throw that out there right now. No one enjoys watching Burnley play. No one has done for years. I'm completely with Heath here. Burnley are a boring small team who are the most championship team that's ever been in the Premier League.
Everyone loves an underdog and an overachiever. Burnley have done it for so long.
No, but the thing is, they like an underdog, but they only like an underdog for a certain amount of time. After a while, it starts getting boring. It's like Brentford are the underdog at the moment. They're fun. But in a few seasons' time, if they don't move on and progress, people will want Brentford to go down because realistically, you want to see the bigger clubs up there, to be fair. You want to see your Leeds United versus Nottingham Forest. I'm not saying that Forest will stay up. I'm just saying it'll be good fun for them to be up. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Matt, please save us. These terrible ideas.
Mine sort of builds on what Tom said. And it's in general new signings because they were a real disappointment last year. This isn't just necessarily new signings coming into the league. It's transfers happening within the league. Like Jesus going to Arsenal could be an interesting one. Christian Eriksen could potentially end up at Man U as well. Looks like they're going to sign Frankie de Jong and Anthony from Ajax. So just sort of some more big names coming into the league. Obviously, Newcastle are going to be splashing the cash. So hopefully there's more variety. There's a bigger pool of players to pick from. Obviously, slightly less so in your situations with the limited pool of players that you've got. But I just think these big name signings, Tom mentioned Haaland and Nunez, it looks like Ousmane Dembele could potentially sign for Chelsea to be their next striker that they ruin, but I'll get sucked into that trap. I just think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And I'm sure there'll be so many draft teams when the FPL does go live of trying to fit all these players in, and there'll be much hair pulled out before we get to that first game week in about 6 weeks' time, which is scarily fast approaching.
Do you think, obviously mentioning Chelsea there, do you actually think they're going to sign an out-and-out striker, or are they going to keep looking to sign like a Dembele, a Raheem Sterling, which basically doesn't solve their problem of not having a striker? It just adds to their growing list of wide players. Are they going to go and sign a striker, or what? What the fuck are they doing?
Probably not at this rate. I mean, Lukaku was the one. He was the big man up front, and like he was going to solve that problem. But they've obviously done much better without him. Whether they rotate people like Dembele, Havertz, Sterling, if he comes in, even Mount can play in that false nine. I think Tuchel sort of decided that's his way of playing now. They don't play to a target man's strengths. Lukaku probably would have done fine if they'd have played to his strengths, but they just refused to. He showed that he did it well at Inter. He did it well for periods at United. He was very good at Everton. So if you're willing to play to those strengths, then it will pay off. But I can't see it happening for them now. It's like all their eggs are in the Dembele basket. I know he's a free transfer, but the wages will be astronomical.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Jesus would have been good for Chelsea, I think, because I think he fit that forward player that Tuchel likes, who's fast, isn't there just trying to play that big number 9 role. And they might have missed a trick out with him there. Who knows? Yeah.
Completely agree.
Some great stuff to look forward to there, guys. And I'm sure we're all looking forward to the new season when it eventually kicks off. That is everything on our agenda for today. Heath, it's awesome getting a chance to do this podcast together. I'm sure we'll be doing more in the future. You can tell it's getting late because I'm not using my words correctly. Matt, any final thoughts?
Oh, yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. Obviously, anyone listening that's made it this far, you can find me and Tom on Twitter at Big at the Back. Come and give us a follow, get involved in the conversation. And obviously, the guys at the FPL North East South as well. It's been a pleasure doing this with you, obviously listening to your podcast throughout the season. Hopefully, there's plenty more to come in the future.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, I think when we started doing the kind of like podcast reviews halfway through our season, we were looking out for, people in the same kind of boat as us, people who are kind of giving something a go and try it out. And it's been really good integrating with you guys and speaking to you guys throughout the season, because I think that we understand what you're trying to do, you understand what we're trying to do, and we're both kind of like two very small podcasts that are trying to do something because we're having fun rather than, trying to get likes and subscribes and all that nonsense, really. But yeah, if you want to, I'm going to contradict myself here, but if you want to contact either State or myself on Twitter, then I'm FPL Southerner, FPL _Southerner, and State is FPL _Northerner, and we've got FPL NvS, which is our North vs South podcast Twitter page. But yeah, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I obviously we've been waiting for a while to do this. Thanks a lot, Matt. But it's well worth the wait.
Yeah. Got to reiterate that it's been really fun, guys. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, we enjoyed listening to your podcast. I'm glad that you guys enjoy ours, and hopefully others have enjoyed both ours as well, to be fair. And like I said, it's just good to speak to other people about football. People who know about football. Anyway, Heath's, he's getting a bit iffy now on his knowledge and his data, so it's good to finally speak to true professionals in the game. So well done, and maybe we could throw in an FPL head-to-head league between each other for next season. Let's see if a North team or a South team can compete with you guys. It's going to be tough given how you guys do, but as we know, head-to-head leagues, one given week is very different. So maybe we could do that and use that as a bit of a font for future collaborations. Maybe that could work potentially.
Yeah,
sign me up.
Sign us up. We're definitely up for it. Cool, guys. Well, to echo what Matt said, it has been a pleasure. We're glad to have got this in the diary and looking forward to the next one. Thank you all very much.
Good night.
Cheers, guys.